Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
Yeah, we have triple the heroin, double the cocaine in our streets since the drug war began. Most people in prison of any nation in the world. Mexican paramilitary troops kill cops on a weekly basis here in Texas. It's hardly in the news. Real crises go on everywhere. But in this town, they have checkpoints. You're not allowed to leave your house during the day, even be in your front yard. This is martial law. No nation is this tyrannical. No nation. I mean, even in Malaysia, when they have martial law in the past, it's only at night and during certain emergency times, and that's decried by the world. But here, the FBI is saying they want random checkpoints on the streets of America. The National Guard, according to NBC News, is being used for gun confiscations in Illinois, not just Chicago. We played that for you 2 weeks ago. Dr. Roberts, what do you think of that?
Well, I don't know the whole situation there, but what this indicates to me is we see how the government in Washington could use the sort of economic dislocations that we might be headed toward and the resulting crime that comes out of that, and to impose the same thing on the entire country. So I think on the whole that you can't give these kinds of orders to people in a free society. And it has to be their judge whether they're willing to take the risk to go out in the event that there's crime in the streets, or whether they need to go out for a reason, a number of legitimate reasons. I don't think that you can tell people that in order to make you safe, we're going to imprison you in your home. The notion that we're made safe by the government taking away our civil liberties, which is the Bush regime's line, or this mayor's line, that we'll make you safe by keeping everybody in their homes so the bad guys can't leave to come bother you. I don't think that this is consistent with the free society.
Well, they say that it's completely selectively enforced. They say it's day and night. The police arbitrarily are now God and decide if you can leave or come or go to work or do what, instead of doing original police work and going after criminals. This is just turning everyone into prisoners. And this is the most extreme form of martial law, saying don't leave your house. This is incredible.
Well, I agree. It's incredible. It's probably being applied in the areas most subject to crime and violence. And that's probably why it's selective. And to the mayor who sees a problem and doesn't know what to do with it, it might seem like, a logical thing to do. But if he were to be guided and think a step or two further, he would see that this is not a good thing. It's not consistent with a free society, and I'm not even sure he has this type of authority. I don't really know if he does or not, but I certainly don't think it's a good development.
Well, imagine driving through this town, what it must be like. But this is happening everywhere. I reported a year and a half before it was in mainstream news that at that time, 13,000 preachers, it's now 26,000, had covertly been hired by FEMA to prepare and give sermons, not telling their flock that were government written, about handing guns in, going to FEMA camps, submitting to government, Romans 13. Now it's been in the mainstream news for the last year. We first broke this 2 and a half years ago. But this is a large program going on all over the place. You look at pt1, the John Warner Defense Authorization Act. You look at all of this. It states martial law. It states the president is basically a dictator. And now we have these gun knock and talk programs going on everywhere. There's no doubt this is a larger concerted atmosphere and a spirit of tyranny, Dr. Roberts.
Well, I think I've written a lot about that and agree with you. I'm not sure this particular mayor is part of that. He may be a part of it by osmosis, just having picked up on these kinds of things.
That's what I think.
Yeah, but but I don't think this is a federal program. This is some local thing where apparently times are hard, and they don't know how to cope with it, and are making a mistake. But you're right. The real danger is federal, because the mayor, that's local. That's a localized thing. When they do it nationally, it's a different kettle of fish.
All right, let's shift gears into Russia. You were last on with us Friday. You wrote a big editorial. Sunday, you were kind enough to share a list that we read part of on air before it was even released Monday. More has developed, and we've now found out that the minister, the head defense minister, and the foreign minister are both former Israeli military officers and admittedly Mossad. The rest of the government is NATO and Ukrainian and U.S. It appears the only major person in their government who is Georgian is Mikhail Sheshvili, and they've now, Russian TV is reporting they have captured U.S. trainers, mercenaries, and they've also reported that Russians did menace the U.S. with tactical nuclear weapons. If you're not aware of that, I can play the report. But give us your basic breakdown of what's happened with Russia and Georgia.
Well, what happened in Georgia is the National Endowment for Democracy, a neocon American taxpayer-funded organization, went in there with American taxpayers' money, went into Georgia, rigged elections, bought elections, created an American puppet state. And this is part of the neocon strategy of encircling Russia and putting buffers between Russia and the Middle East so that their influence there is precluded. And I'm almost certain that this attack on South Ossetia by the Georgians was engineered by Cheney. It seems to me the purpose of this is to hasten Georgia's admission into NATO. Apparently we wanted them in, and the European members sort of delayed it. So I think this is to say, look, the Russian aggressors, poor Georgia. If only they had been members of NATO, Russia never would have done this. I mean, I think that's what it is, and they want to completely capture this puppet state by sticking it into NATO, and I think that's what's behind all this. The hypocrisy, of course, of the Bush regime is extraordinary. They again lying through their teeth. I mean, how do we know they're lying? Their lips are moving, right? Lying through the teeth that Russia invaded, and this is not the facts. The Georgians, after giving assurances that they would never do this, just very recently, pulled off this sneak attack. Clearly, there were American forces there training the Georgians, probably directing it. And now we are trying to get the whole world, with our propaganda and disinformation, riled up about the Russians. This is another false flag operation run by the neoconservatives. Now, the Russians, it's very interesting. In today's Pravda online, there's an article. The title is, Bush, why don't you shut up? And then it says, I'm going to read the opening and closing paragraph. Taking the words of the illustrious King of Spain in his embellic retort to President Hugo Chavez, we use them not as a response to a diatribe, but rather a just retort to an imbecile, President George W. Bush. Why don't you shut up? And this is now how it concludes. President Bush, why don't you shut up? Do you really think anyone gives any importance whatsoever to your words after 8 years of your criminal and murderous regime and policies? Do you really believe you have any moral ground whatsoever? And do you really imagine there is a single human being anywhere on this planet who does not stick up his middle finger every time you appear on a TV screen? Do you really believe you have the right to give any opinion or advice after Abu Ghraib, after Guantanamo, after the massacres of hundreds of thousands of Iraqi citizens, after the torture by CIA operatives? Kind of difficult, huh? So that's what the Russian press thinks of it all.
Dr. Roberts, that was my next question. I have Bush's quotes here, and I could read them all or I could paraphrase. He gave a press conference this morning. Everybody's probably already seen it or heard it. We can play the clip.
Yeah.
But he said, Russia has engaged in aggression. They've invaded a sovereign nation. This is criminal. This is horrible.